It's time for a new season of sports car racing on Apex Racing TV as we welcome back the Apex Racing League Prototype Championship for its 6th season. And whilst many things haven't changed for the season, there are a couple of big changes, mostly the car lineup with 3 new LMDhs for this season, plus the LMP3 class making its debut. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick and I have alongside me David Sampson, otherwise known as Sampsoid. And David, it's wonderful to have you here in the Apex Racing TV esports studio. And you know, usually we see these prototype cars, they're muddling around the GT cars and having to put up with them. This season, all 9 rounds, they've got the circuit completely to themselves. It's going to be good to see.
It's going to be great. First of all, great to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's going to be great to see. Obviously, we do see them muddling with the GTs, but that's not meaning the LMP3s are going to be easy to tackle. They're a lot quicker than the GTs. Their braking's tremendously better. But yeah, it's going to be great to see a packed field of LMPs out there. Yeah, can't wait.
And well, let's have a look at our lineup as well for this season when it comes to LMDh cars, because it's quite different compared to the previous season, because last season we had the BMW and that was the only car, but now got the Cadillac, which we've sort of got used to now on the iRacing sim. It's been around for a while, but the Porsche and the Acura are really the ones that are going to be grabbing my eyes at least, because there's always something about new cars when it comes to iRacing. Their appearance always doubles in terms of looks in the first couple of months, and I think the Acura and the Porsche certainly fall into that category.
For sure. Obviously, Porsche is one of my favourite car brands, I would say. The Acura, I think, is fantastic to drive and looks great. Yeah, it's great to see from iRacing, because when we had the introduction with the LMP2, we all hoped it would branch out, become more, but it's great to see this. It's rivaling the early concept of the GTs already with 4, and yeah, I think it makes it great to watch prototypes of different model and designs out there. It always adds an element of greatness, I always feel.
Absolutely, yeah. It should be really cool to see them all in action. Of course, such a fantastic GTP lineup from the IMSA sports car series, pretty much covering all of those cars now. And of course, we also have the LMP3 as well. The Ligier making its debut in the Apex Racing League Prototype Championship. And I mean, this thing, obviously, compared to the MDHs, it's going to look like it's pretty much standing still. But I mean, the performance stats for this are pretty epic as well. And it's also just quite a nice car to drive as well. You can sort of jump into it. I'd say similar to the LMP2. The LMP2 I don't think is necessarily the trickiest car to drive either. Correct. But the LMP3 is sort of in that same vein of prototype car.
It's a brilliant car to drive. I mean, my background was always GTEs, and obviously we're seeing that dying out time after time. The LMP3 just gives me that buzz back that I had. I don't know, it's hard to describe what gives you the buzz, but I think the LMP3 is fantastic for all. Whether you come in from GT or you are coming from Formula, I think this has got a little bit of everything, and yeah, very fun to drive. I love it.
Definitely, and of course, let's have a look at the tracks that the drivers have got to contend with for this season. We're following the IMSA Sports Car Series schedule. Of course, it's nice and easy because the European Sprint Series, of course, isn't so much of a thing anymore, and so this is a much easier kind of replacement for that. And round 1, Fuji for tonight, but then of course we've got Spa, Road Atlanta, some absolute classics on there. Any which stand out to you, which you would quite like to leave this desk for and be on the circuit for?
Oh, me, Road Atlanta, the Glen, and Road America. I think Road America makes for fantastic racing. Whether you love or hate the track, the racing is always great. I've always found. Obviously, Road Atlanta means a lot to me. Watkins Glen means a lot to everyone. Yeah, but fantastic lineup tracks.
Yeah, good work from the IMSA community to pick those circuits. Some American circuits to keep it IMSA based, but also some recognition of the wider world as well. And well, for our format for this season, roughly the same, particularly when it comes to the races, still 60 minutes in length on the most part. We've got 3 75-minute races as well. But for tonight, just the 60 minutes, but we have got a new qualifying format, 30 minutes, but each driver will only have 10 minutes out on track. So we'll have the first 10 minutes for the LMP3 class, then the next 10 minutes for the LMDh AMs, and the last 10 minutes for the LMDh Pros. So it's sort of a similar length qualifying day. I think the biggest change is going to be that there's going to be other drivers on circuit, so you've got to balance that right. I mean, in your experience in these cars, do you think there'll be some sort of slipstreaming that perhaps the drivers will try, or is it just going to be find your own pocket of air?
LMDh, yeah, especially Fuji with the long straight, we could see teammates helping each other out. It's not easy to orchestrate though. With lots of cars, if you spend any time trying to orchestrate having your teammates side by side, you also run the risk of now putting yourself near a larger pocket of traffic. So I don't know. Open qualifying is a different beast. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of luck, let's say, because someone's lap could be aborted and it screws up your run. It's just difficult. I've always struggled in open qualifying.
Yeah, and of course, it's very different to what the guys are used to when it comes to the official series, where you just got 2 laps. Close qualifying, the format that we've got used to so much, but yeah, of course, extra elements for them to tackle with now. And of course, you've seen some images already behind us of Fuji. That was from last season in the Prototype Championship, but let's have a better look at the track for tonight. And of course, the most famous aspect of this circuit, David, is the straights. It's I believe 1.5 kilometers long. I should have probably checked that beforehand, but it's pretty much the longest straight in any series that it's part of.
Yep.
It is absolutely a Goliath, and that really does create an incredible overtaking chance. Dare I say, you can even overtake and then be re-overtaken by the end of the straight.
For sure, and it's not the easiest straight to get onto. You always find, especially in these prototypes, I haven't driven LMDh here, but with the high power in a low gear, it's not an easy corner to navigate onto, and then you've got the exit curb when the power's finally down. So yeah, not only a long straight, but a technical entry onto it. So overtaking and plenty, for sure.
Definitely. And another element of this track is sort of that final sector, so slow speed, undulation as well, and then also some curbs on the outside of the circuit as well. Do you think there could be some damage being caused to these cars by running over those rumble strips, or do you think they might get away with them?
No, there will be, 100%. This track in the last sector, if you're pushing to keep a gap build, it's hard enough to not make a mistake for the full hour, let alone if they start going side by side. It's very low traction, very technical, and as you say, the curbs there are very unforgiving, especially in a prototype.
Yeah, and also a pretty warm track temperature as well for tonight, just over 30 degrees. So whilst it's similar to the official series, it's still something for the drivers to reckon with as well. And I mean, I should say as well, Kyoto Yamamoto, who is a returning champion, 5-time champion in Apex Racing League history. I'm sure we'll get on to more of that later on. He did win here last time out at Fuji, so he's very much got pedigree for later on. Yeah, well, we're just a few moments away from qualifying, and well, yeah, would you say there's any sort of other tips you would say, David, for this circuit with the drivers about to launch into those hot laps?
It's an hour hot track Fuji, so it's keeping those tyres alive, and whether there's a pit strategy for maybe getting some fresh rubber could be beneficial earlier in the race, but let's see. It's an hour at Fuji in hot temps, so keeping those tyres alive, keeping the car working, that's my biggest tip here for them.
Definitely. Well, we will transfer over into qualifying now to catch the start of the LMP3s setting their lap times, but we'll be back in just a few moments on Apex Racing TV.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, welcome to Fuji, and we are just in the early stages of qualifying at the moment, and like I said before, we have got 3 stages of qualifying coming up. Each of the individual classes go out by themselves, and the first class is the LMP3 class. Then we will have the LMDh ARMS and then the LMDh Pros. So by that logic, we should see the times gradually get faster and faster as the session goes on, albeit with the track temperature continuing to increase. 6 degrees now. That won't necessarily be a given once we get to the LMDhs later on. As we just see some aerial photos of the drivers just saying those first few times, and yeah, the rumble of the LMP3's car is quite distinctive.
Yeah, what a beautiful scan as well this track is. I remember driving it the day it came out on the backdrops. It goes to show the potential we're going to get once we get a rescan of more modern, more tracks that we've got used to. Fantastic scan.
Yeah, it really does look good. You can see the mountains in the background a little bit on a few of the corners. Actually, I think this one as well. It's towards the left-ish is Fuji Mountain. But yeah, it is a pretty neat scan. And well, at the moment, it's a pretty neat lap for Daniel Sedgley. He is up top by 1/4 of a second for Olympus Esports. And the drivers, once they get to that 10 minutes, they can complete the lap that they start. So there's still a fair few more laps to complete. No slipstream at the moment for Dan. I can't help but feel in these LMP3 categories, it's surely got to be an advantage to get a little bit of a draft down this front straight. But right now, Sedgley punching his own hole in the air. It's not serving him badly, and he goes even faster. He's now 6/10 clear.
Wow. Yeah, you are right. Especially in LMP3, the draft is probably even bigger than the LMDh, but the dirty air is also more in these cars. They don't have the front grip of, say, the LMDh, so in the last sector, would you want to be 3/10 off the back of someone unless you know that they have the possibility of setting a pole and you're hoping for second? It could get more difficult than the gains you get on the straight.
Well, here is, if a team is going to work together, it's going to be VRS. They've got 4 drivers in this series. They've got Bob Humphrey, who recently won the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup in the Amateur Championship. That was his 2nd Apex Racing League title. Then they've also got Joseph Saul and Kev Copeland and Tom Stevens, albeit Stevens yet to set an eligible lap time. So let's see what this time is going to be from Copeland. He just crosses the beam now. And it looks like maybe it was invalidation because he has not improved on that time round and remains in 7th position. So he's still Sedgley with that strong advantage. And yeah, that's going to be some gap to gain, albeit we should point out Sedgley 4.6k compared to Adam State's 6.1k. Adam very much going to be a tough rival as Stevens does put in an eligible lap time now, and he moves up to the 2nd row of the grid.
There's still quite a lead the leader's got. I still think, I recognise the name Adam State. I've definitely seen him a race. I think we can see some stiff competition as we see 14 go P2. But still, yeah, you're right. Dan's got a ½ a second lead at the moment, so he's doing something right. Well prepared he is indeed. Like I said, with the rise in temperatures, there's definitely an advantage for making sure you get your... There's obviously open quali. Like you say, iRacers are used to 2 laps in almost what feels like a fixed temperature condition. But when this session's ½ an hour long, earlier the better.
Yes, and of course the cars going out there as well will ever so slightly increase the track temperature as well. And so just the few drivers now starting their final lap times. Paul Joseph Clist, regular of Apex Racing League, he's out here today as well. And with a pretty good time as well for Clist so far, putting himself in 6th position. Only man yet to set a lap time is Kevin Smith. Smith did do 1 lap, but unfortunately he has been in the pits ever since. So I doubt we are going to see him move up in the time remaining. So I'm just looking out for any personal best sectors. Adam State may be improving a little bit in the 2nd sector, trying to get closer to Dan Sedgley's lap time, but with Sedgley continuing to improve out there, it might be too much. 1 second to gain, and actually Stevens is back in the, apologies, State is still out there, but yeah, Stevens out of qualifying now. He's just waiting to see if he can stay on the 2nd row of the grid as it stands.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan's looking very pretty right now, but obviously he locked me down on this last lap. Adam's State does look like he's got the pace. It looks like he's one of the fastest in the last sector, so it's just a case of getting the lap done when it matters. But yeah, sitting P2 at the moment, 2 tenths off, so things are starting to close up. 4 tenths now in the top 3.
It looks like State's actually going to come in. So what an anticlimax that is, and not the first time that will happen, or not the last time that will happen this season. Driver behind as well, just coming into the pits as well. I think it may be Brian Robinson. He will remain last of the qualifiers in 9th place. In fact, actually, yeah, he just set a lap time 36.666, which is a bad omen if I've ever seen one. Bob Humphrey, he is still out there, but no personal best sectors at the moment for Humphrey. We have got 3 sectors on this circuit, but the first 2 at least, nothing inspirational from Humphrey. And, well, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of motivation for him to be up, because it would be ahead of his teammates if he was able to improve. And I think he did improve there, did Humphrey, but not enough to get up any places. His teammate, Kev Copeland, one of the few remaining drivers who can improve. Dan Sedgley as well on a lap, and Remy Fortin. And Fortin, in fact, is currently on a personal best lap. So Fortin will be very close to the front row of the grid if he can keep this pace up on his final attempt.
Yep, a few laps left to do. Most, like you say, half the field's in the pits, but it looks like some people have timed it quite nicely to get that one last attempt in. Especially if your fuel's run down, you get a bit of experience, tyres are warmed up. Oof. Off we see a slide from Dan there, but looks like he'll still be definitely front row of the grid. And
Fortin, unfortunately, had to go back to the pits on that last lap. So a little bit of another early exit there. As you can already see, the LMDh AMs out on circuit. They are on their outlaps and start seeing their fast laps as well. So there's pretty much no break whatsoever.
Yeah, I saw that. That could have been that was well timed, let's say.
Yeah, it is a slight. Of course, you sort of want to be out on circuit straight away, but at the same time, yeah, you don't want to be risking catching up to an LMP3 when they are on their fast laps still, in case there's any penalties being given. But now we've got 13 of these LMDh AM drivers. And by the way, of course, we always get the same questions. I mean, how do you set the pro and the AM stands? It's mainly by iRacing, and this season it's a 4K cutoff. LMDh drivers are always so high quality that the cutoff is much higher. We've had it in series before where it's only been 2.5K, for example, the difference between pro and AM drivers. But yeah, 4K. So there are some very, very quick drivers in this LMDh AM field.
For sure. Do you ever find you cut them off for performance as well? Does that ever come into it? Previous league performances, let's say.
That is another factor. Absolutely.
Okay,
I think I want to say Nick Madsen maybe last season in the Porsche Cups. Of course, former champion is Nick Madsen, so he got whacked up into the
Big
race,
dogs.
even though his iRacing wasn't quite high enough for it. So yeah, that is definitely a factor. And also, if someone's 5K and they've done 10 races on the sim, then obviously that's very much a reason to put them up as well. And I think the first few turns are going to be set. This man is actually the highest iRacing driver of anyone, 3.9K. Mark Hutchinson just dipping below the line. And, well, he's just dipping below the pole position as well. 2 seconds off at the moment, with Smerik setting the early pace.
Yeah, and a Porsche on pole at the moment. Let's see how that fares. I still think the BMW is probably the car for this track, but let's see. This is the AM field. It's more about just getting a lap, driving a car you're more familiar with, fulfilling the sector. I reckon there's a few other names in this class, from Nathan, David, Mark, so a few of them. Definitely good drivers. But yeah, obviously 2 of those cars are very new to the series, so we've still got a lot to learn. Oh, as we do see a BMW currently setting the time, so...
Well, it's good that we've got 4 different manufacturers in the top 4.
Correct, yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Hopefully that will keep up for the rest of the season. By the way, thanks to John O'Sinton for subscribing. Much appreciated.
Jono's a legend. I know him well.
Good. There you go. Already you being here, David, is working wonders.
Make it rain, yeah.
Yeah, let's see if we can get to 16K tonight, guys. Another 900 subs.
Yeah, let's do it.
Not too much. So yeah, Nakira currently on top. Driver who, yeah, at least I haven't seen too much in Apex Racing League in the past, but always have plenty of Italians entering this series and on Apex Racing TV generally. And well, he's still trying to improve at the moment. And he is setting a couple of personal best first 2 sectors, so I think this might extend his already decent margin.
Yeah, it's impressive. We're seeing 3 different classes in the top 3 positions as well, which is always nice to see. I think the Acura is so good to drive. Honestly, when my first experience of driving it transformed how I felt about LMDhs, so much so that I actually started to drive the rest of them. Obviously, it might have been more just changes in general to the LMDhs. I wasn't just a super fan when they first got released.
Yeah, and well, so far at least this season, there's at least according to Owen Carroll, who of course is the Apex Racing Academy coach for these LMDh cars, always does a pop kind of stream and test early in the week. And well, so far this season, it's sort of been the BMW which has maybe had the edge, but it's different when it comes to the one-lap performance compared to the long-run pace. And so there isn't necessarily one car which is an absolute worst car to go to, very much exemplified by the mixture of cars that we've got in this series that drivers have signed up for. But, you know, there will be different strengths and weaknesses, and whilst there might be one fast in qualifying, there might be one fast in the race, as Poncelet Loy just going a bit deep there. He's, yeah, going to have to go for another lap.
Yeah, that's what I find fascinating about the LMDh is the BOP is really close, but how they extrapolate their lap time, especially on one lap and over a race, is done in different ways. Like we see the caddies struggling with exit performance, but they have fundamentally rapid straight line speed. The Acura is, I would say, one of the more easier cars to drive, but struggles with traction off the corner. So what I'm trying to say is that it is impressive that if your driving style suits a weakness of one of the cars and you can make the most of it, you can. I think it's fantastic. It's obviously we get that from the GT3s, just not as pronounced. The BOP's just close and they're quite similar to drive, but it's more determined about their understeer and oversteer attributes. I've been really impressed with I've been watching Owen's BOPs as well, so it's great to see. It's great to see.
Currently, Wilbrink at the top of the standings, which very much means that if Kia Thiago Marto can perform the way that we are expecting, we could well see a Dutch driver at the top of the LMDh Pro and AM standings. He's currently caught over second clear of Simone Nokura, who, despite saying the early pace, is waiting for an improvement. Here comes David Vey, who's taken part in a couple of series, and of course he's on the cusp actually of winning the Amateur Championship in the Apex Racing League GT3 trophy. This would be another level up, however, for Vey if he could take this title as well. And well, currently a second off the pace. Mark Hutchinson, I think, just improving up into P3 as well. Only 0.003 of a second off the front row of the grid, as we have about 2.5 minutes of this session to go. So if the drivers are starting a lap now, they'll be able to complete this lap and another lap as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking when we saw some people dive into the pit right at the end there, we have to remember that they don't want to carry extra fuel. If they're targeting 2 laps or targeting 3 laps, yes, being able to do one more is advantageous, but doing it on low fuel is more advantageous. So I need to remember that. Open quali is not something I've experienced it more in the ARL leagues than I have in any other way in iRacing, so it's something I need to remember. I
am a big fan of this paint. I think this is, I mean, I generally do like the look of the Porsche, but I mean, I think it looks sort of a little bit retro, so sort of almost reminds me a little bit of Group C, yeah. and that livery as well. That's very much making me think of Group C as well. So thumbs up from me to Simonson Racing for that effort.
Group C Racing was amazing for sure.
And well, Jonas is trying to get him to gain some extra speed as well. The Apex Racing League logos will certainly help with that one. And he's just got a few more corners to go. So too does this man, Rick Wilbrink. And whilst he is on pole position right now, others are still improving behind him. And I do feel like an improvement may be needed as he just gets a little bit of oversteer going into the penultimate corner. And that could lose him a couple of hundredths from what he needed, because it was a personal best sector 1, and so he's certainly in the ballpark for an improvement. He's going to be able to do one more lap after this if he has got the fuel and the tyres to do so, and he now has to wait for the longest straight of the season in order to see what his lap time is. Is it an improvement? It is not. It's some 0.4 of a second off. He's still pushing though, is the Fury SimSport driver. but he is vulnerable from the guys behind. However, Nakura has actually just gone off the circuit near the end of the lap, so no improvement for the P2 man.
Yeah, it's looking tight, but we're seeing what 4, 5, and 6 are in the pits. P2's now in the pits, so it's definitely winding down. Whether Mark's got enough fuel to do one more lap to challenge Rink. Yep, looking like BMW domination at the top there, 1 and 2.
Yep, that is looking good for them at the moment. And yeah, at least when it came to 1 lap pace, that was Owen Carroll's fastest car the other day by about a tenth of a second over the Acura, the Cadillac, and the Porsche, just stacking in 3rd and 4th. But like I said, when it comes to the race pace, could be very different between those. As you can see, Mac has got his webcam set up, so very much thanks to Mac. It's always good to get that on the broadcast, and of course all the drivers who are watching this back, or any friends of any of the drivers who want to humiliate their friends and get them on the stream. There is a link in the League Discord. You can click on that link, and it's fairly simple to set up a webcam to show on the stream, as pretty much everyone is back to the pits. Mac is still racing out there, because we have got some of the pro drivers now exiting out onto the track, but it's just Mac Mafakwa is currently on this final lap, and then Rink Wilbrink has just gone back to the pits. Let's see what this is going to be from Mac. He did set a personal best sector 2, so this might be enough. And he just gave us a thumbs up. So he's listening to the stream as well. Absolutely top marks. Mark is quickly becoming my favourite driver as he does move up to 11th place on that final attempt.
Yeah, brilliantly done. And on camera, classy.
Really nice stuff. These drivers in the LMDh Pros now just rounding the final couple of corners to start their next lap. Now, I have got a few questions for you now,
Shoot.
David, for trivia. And this is trivia questions.
Okay.
And I got 3 of them, and we'll see how far we get through it as the broadcast goes on, as the first few times are being set.
Yep.
So, first trivia question. These are track-specific questions.
Aye.
Okay. When was the last F1 race held at the Fuji Speedway? What year? I want a year. I don't even want a decade. I want a year, please.
I don't know.
And, well, anyone in the chat, please do hesitate.
Yeah, they got Google.
Because they... yeah, that's a good point.
I have no idea. Let's say... not a decade, no, 94.
I'm going for 94. It's not 94. No, it's 2008. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Well, that's 0 out of 1 at the moment, but you've got 2 more
yeah.
questions later on, which you can redeem yourself on. And well, if nothing else, that's the reason to tune in for the rest of the stream.
Brilliant.
Yeah, they're halfway through the laps now. I think it's going to be Andrew Dawson who's going to set the first lap of the session.
Yeah, I recognise lots of names in this split. Paul Busby's very quick, obviously QT. Max Voss is very fast. Daniel Kraft is very fast. Andrew Dawson's very fast. Miguel Bento, Radweasel, very good driver. This is going to be a very, very tough split.
Marte already setting a lap time, so actually he was the first across the line, seemingly, and was a very good time as well, albeit Max Voss very much quickly beats that his fellow countryman, and so it is currently a Dutch 1-2, and Voss ahead of Marte, then it's Pierre Cheval and Dawson. Foley in 5th position, but still most of the drivers yet to cross the line. Josu Alzugari crossing the line very soon. Psycho goes to 2nd place. Alzugari, he's got experience in single-seaters in the past and Porsche Cups. He moves up to the front row, but I feel like that timing tower is got a lot of changes.
Yeah. Was it a 26-0 we saw from the AMS?
I think you might be right.
Which means, yeah, we've got a long... Was it a 27-0?
26-0.
26-0, yeah? Okay, so yeah, we're 2/10 off that at the moment in Pro. So yeah. First lap, feel out the conditions, feel out your nerves. And as I say, open qualifying, it's not easy. Dirty air, people make mistakes. While they may get off your line and not harm your lap, it's distracting. It's something we don't practice a lot, especially for qualifying.
And of course, a reminder as well that whilst, of course, we're looking at the standings at the moment, the pro and the AM drivers are going to be mixed rounds. Look at that, Marte now goes 7/10 clear of anything that we've seen so far with a 25.284. But you do want to qualify as high as you possibly, or set as fast a lap time as you possibly can. Even if it doesn't get you any places in the pros, it might get you positions against other amateur drivers on the grid. And so start seeing 7th fastest time won't necessarily be 7th on the grid. So it is absolutely essential that they maximise the performance. Kraft's moving up into 2nd position. I think also Andrew Dawson setting an improvement, but right now Marte well clear of the rest.
Yeah, a different league at the moment. Obviously 25.6, still a great lap from Philip Kraft, but QT found something special there. We're seeing the times quite close from 3rd all the way down to 8th at the moment. So yeah, goes to show what QT had in the bag. I know Paul Busby very well. He's very fast. He's I've never seen him drive prototypes, but a fast driver's a fast driver. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and had some good results in the Apex Racing League, the ASUS Apex Racing League Endurance Championship fairly recently, finishing I think in 3rd position. Did Effect Simulations behind Pure Sims and Walk Racing Red on that occasion, but did manage to get, I think, 1 race win during the season, and a Stormforce Spotlight actually they managed to achieve as well. So I think they get themselves a headset, which hopefully will be very valuable for those guys. As Paul just ran the final car, it's so painful. I mean, like, these cars are so quick.
Yes,
and
that
yet
last
you kind of get into that, and it's just off throttle for 70% of it. It doesn't seem to do the car justice.
He split the crafts, craft for K and craft for C. He's bang in the middle, P3. Good lap.
Absolutely disappointing how we've got those 2 names there. Busby in 5th position. I'll say as well they might be next to each other in terms of, no, there's 1,000 iRates in between the 2 of them, but yeah, they are annoyingly close to one another on the grid as it stands. Aaron Smith, who of course was on this very stage bar 2 weeks ago, was Aaron, and of course a former F3 champion in the Pro-Am category in the past. But also he has had a little bit of experience in the LMDhs, but I think he's going to be improving his pace as the season goes on. And yeah, I'm sure he's going to be threatening the top 10 by the end of this session. Excellent,
excellent, excellent. Max Foss is down in 7th, just trying to track Miguel Bento, P16 at the moment, 127.1. So yeah, but we're seeing Philip Kraft getting close now, but yeah, P3 seems, the front 2 definitely have something special at the moment.
Does look that way at the moment. W versus Acura.
Yep.
Smith moves up to 7th. That's a very good time there from Aaron Smith. I mean, I was saying he might be threatening top 10. And I did mean it, but I mean, I thought it would be maybe in a couple of laps' time, but no, up to P7 already, and putting himself ahead of some very quick drivers. Voss, Madsen, Ibram, and Wilson, all very competitive.
Oh, I didn't give a shout out to Joshua Wilson. Very fast guy. LMP2 driver that I've raced against thousands of times. Very good guy, very quick. I haven't seen him drive an LMDh, but I did know recently he made the transition over, which is great to see. I think this is a great class that's only going to get bigger in iRacing. I'm not sure how much it would grow further. I know people want the Ferrari and the other one I can't think of right now. But as far as IMSA goes, and that's what iRacing is after, IMSA, not WEC, these are the cars.
Exactly.
Now, yeah, I think there should still be the excitement around the Ferrari and the Peugeot. Ferrari and Peugeot, that's it. Fantastic looking cars, 2 of the best looking, but I just don't personally see it happening on iRacing. I don't want to say at all, because that hurt people's feelings, but IMSA's about IMSA. That's how I feel iRacing has done it.
Exactly, and of course we do have the Le Mans Ultimate game coming out later this year.
Yep.
And yeah, so it might be a little bit tricky to get those WEC licenses for the foreseeable future, but no, it's very good that we've at least got the GTP lineup from IMSA, as you were saying before. As the drivers now, well, some of the drivers starting their final lap times for this session. Sergio Ferrer with a decent amount of pressure on his shoulders, because he's currently 20th of the LMDh Pro drivers. This is just the Pro drivers, not even the AM drivers as well. We're going to have 35 cars of LMDhs, which is pretty much as big a field of LMDhs as you will ever see on iRacing. It's going to be a very cool sight to see them all fight against each other. Pedro Valencia, which is one of the most Spanish names you've ever seen in your life, the Spanish driver in 19th position. Personal best sector 2, I think this might be an improvement coming up for Pedro, but I'm not seeing anything coming up there, so seemingly he's stuck in 19th place. He has still got 1 lap to go though.
And as just a random fact I'm looking at here, it means the the AM driver from LMDh is actually going to be qualifying 9th, if I've got this right, if it stays as is. So right. That's a great showing.
Yeah, that's mixing it around with the pros, and of course with the point system that we use for this series as well, there is a benefit for the AM drivers to beat the pro drivers. It is for your overall position in your car class, and so they are absolutely racing against each other. The checker flag is waving, but the drivers can complete the lap times that they are currently on, and so do watch out for that timing tower to continue changing. Daniel Kraft, the highest up driver, who's still to complete a lap time, but he was putting some extra shapes, making some extra corners down the straight, so I don't think this is going to be improvement, and yeah, it is a fair bit off his best time. Still got Hugo Prieto, Joshua Wilson, Lorenzo Zoffoli, Antonino Segre and Pedro Valencia to complete the laps.
Yes, indeed. Oh, you said about completing your lap. It is only if you know that. This is your first open quality experience. As soon as you see the checker, you pull over.
Yeah.
Because it's just...
Or in your circumstance, you pull over 2 laps on the end.
No comment. Sometimes. No comment.
Check out the Apex Racing team social media channels for that one. Wilson has just got meters remaining, but instead he makes a dive for the pits. I think I think you're absolutely right. I think a few of these drivers are falling for that because we haven't seen many improvements on the last lap so far, have we?
Yeah, I've been there before. My first ARL experience, I made lots of amateur mistakes because I just wasn't used to what open qualifying brings you. You know, it's not something iRacing uses. It's a feature we have that is brilliant because this is how it is in real life. If people always chase realism, this difficulty with other drivers being on track is something real drivers have to tackle with. So it's great to see. It's just, yeah, it brings that extra gap in knowledge sometimes.
Yeah, it does create a little bit of extra difficulty. So that is the qualifying session complete, and the session will shortly tick over, and we'll be back over to the grid in just a few moments' time. But yeah, I mean, now it comes to the race, obviously, and you know, I feel like in GT3 racing, often we don't talk so much about the tyres, like it's sort of not so much of a push factor. But in these, particularly the LMDh cars, a big decision for the drivers whether or not they take tyres. We think probably 2 tyres is the way to go, because when you take fuel, you're going to have to be stationary anyway, and tyres and fuel taken at the same time.
Correct. And especially that last sector, if you've got no rears, you're going to be down time. And while you can defend it, that's fine. But once there is a pit in this race, and if you're burning a couple of tenths a lap and a guy pits 5 laps earlier than you and does get some freshies on. But I think for the drivers, it's going to be about timing it at the right point. If the drivers go long and pit when they run out of fuel, I don't believe there's going to be time for any tyres, because it's going to be a short dart to the end. So will we see drivers pit in when the slot allows them to chuck on some rears and run to the end? But let's see if they thought of that or listening to the broadcast.
Yeah, we know certainly a couple of the drivers are listening, so we'll see if they follow our advice. So there is the grid then. Kia Tiago Marto once again taking his customary position, but pushed by Philip Kraft there for Garrick Motorsports in that qualifying session. Then it is the other race clutch driver of Andrew Dawson on the second row of the grid, ahead of Daniel Kraft after his Apex Racing League prototype Apex Racing ASUS Apex Racing League Endurance Championship victory. Andre Viella is in 5th position there. It's Paul Busby, Aaron Smith, Rink Vilbrink, who is top of the amateur drivers. Then it is Simone Nakura, Mark Hutchinson, Ishka Biachevel, Joshua Wilson, Lorenzo Zoffoli, Antonino Segre, David Vey and Lars Devan in 20th place. And then Blaž Tarowski, Davide Favare, Sergio Ferreira, Jonas Simonsen, Miguel Bento, Mac Fakawa and Hakon Jökulsson, Pedro Valencia in 32nd place. And then you can see here the LMP3 category, and here's Dan Sedgley on pole position for that, ahead of Adam States, Remy Fortin, Tom Stevens, Bob Humphrey, Kev Copeland, Paul Joseph Clist, Joseph Saul, Brian Robinson, and Kevin Smith. Apologies for a few of the names being missed there on the grid, but yeah, it's pretty much that is the whole field, and yeah, we will be underway in just a few minutes' time. In fact, already the drivers are underway under the safety car.
Excellent. Do you practice driver pronunciations before the stream?
I usually do. I didn't today.
Well, I'm really impressed. I'm glad you didn't give me that job.
Yeah, a few people I've probably annoyed, and rightly so. Rightly so.
No,
of course, anyone who is watching and we get their names wrong, please do let us know. We will improve on it. We've got 8 rounds to redeem our reputations. But, well, we've got 9 more rounds for these drivers to decide who is going to be the Season 6 champions for the Apex Racing League Prototype Championship. And the drivers can launch anywhere between the final safety car line, which is a big white line which covers the entire circuit, and the finish line. It's about a 50-meter period, and the pole sitter can choose to launch whenever they want in that area. So here, Thiago Marteau running the car number 1, indicating his reigning champion status, is bringing us to the line right now, and that safety car is in, and Marteau can go whenever he wants at this point. He is waiting, he is waiting, he is waiting, and now we launch these 35 LMDh cars here at Fuji Motor Speedway, and it is a fantastic launch for our defending champion. Behind him, Andrew Dawson, his teammate, immediately moving up into second place, a bit of 4 wide, in fact, for the final podium place behind, but it's Marteau leading Dawson ahead of Kraft. Max Boss with a nice start, but not many changes in the LMDHs.
No, he definitely gave his teammate the draft there. Looked well orchestrated, well practiced, and P2 had no chance there. Very well handled.
And now, we have got a spinner round. That's Dominic Smerick and Jonas Simonson seemingly have collided. In the LMP3s, Dan Sedgley leading the way. Adam States is holding on to second position, and he should be fairly comfortable there. You can see a few of the Evo cars in the green, all on the inside of the track. And it looks like Tom Stevens actually going to gain a place there. Remy Fortin dropping from 3rd down to 4th into turn 1 the first time round. And that's Humphrey, Copeland, Saul, Robinson, Clist and Smith. However, you can see on the left a big collision at the chicane, where we often see collisions. Yeah. And, well, that was Zafoli and Wilbrink as well. Interesting as well, Wilbrink from the top of our amateur category with issues early on.
Yeah, it's tough. Cold brakes, cold tyres, LMDHs are very tricky, especially the car classes that are being chosen. I'd say the Acura is probably the easiest on cold tyres, but yeah, we knew that that section of track was always going to be dangerous on the first lap.
And it seems like Josu Alzugari has had another issue as well. So we managed to get through the first corner pretty much fine. But after that, a few issues for our drivers. And a few guys as well having to run with damage now until their pit stops. Look at the dummy there, making some extra corners before we get to turn 1. And that's James Ibrahim going to try to gain a place. However, it's not a good exit for him. I think Ibrahim's going to have to stay where he is on circuit. He's battling with Hugo Prieto, who leads this long train of cars. And Prieto remains in 8th position in the pros.
Yeah, not easy to hold the inside there with such an acute angle of the dive. I mean, it looked good and it could have worked had it intimidated the guy on the outside. If the guy on the outside's confident, that's where the traction will be. It's just too difficult to turn on a dime there, downhill, off camber.
And here is our AM leader at the moment, Simone Nakura, who led most of the amateur qualifying, but he is now to the top of the amateur as well. And of course, whilst he is probably got his main eyes on the amateur drivers around him, he is in amongst the pros at the moment. And yeah, trying to make his way past them. But yeah, this quite a lot of field spread so far, but there are big packs of drivers still formed.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they'll be caring if it's a pro or an amber in head or behind. It's a clustered field. If you give one position, you're going to lose 3. It's a very tricky tack there. Right now, they just want to get deep into the race. If they have a fuel target, hitting that, keeping the tyres alive. But yeah, it's great to see the AMs battling it out with the pros. Always great to see. Oh, as you see, a move made here by Dan.
Well, that's State moving past Dan Sedgley. And so Adam State now back up into the lead then. Yeah, so State will be delighted with that one, passing his fellow countrymen. But look at the battling behind as well. State leading Sedgley, leading Stevens, who's still ahead of Fortin, who he managed to overtake at the very first corner of the race. And now we've got Davide Favero in the LMDh, trying to move through these guys after having to take a pit stop early.
Yeah, we're seeing what the problem is now. Now you want to make sure you get a gap build in MDH, because if you time the LMP3s wrong and you have a fellow class opponent near you, it's very easy to make the move done to set them up on a different line. It's not easy around here, especially if you catch a pack of LMP3s in that last sector. Like we mentioned about maybe the GT3 sometimes being difficult, but these LMP3s are quite quick with good traction. So yeah, the LMP3s is a lot. It's going to be about timing.
Oh, spinning round. That's Simone Nakura, I believe, who has made that mistake from the lead of the LMDh AM category. And that's now Balazs Tarowski, who is very close to the back of him. But it's now Mark Hutchinson who leads that. Only starts in 3rd place out of the MDH AMs. With issues for the guys who started at the front, it's now Mark Hutchinson leading the way.
Snatching the brakes is so easy to do. If you go deep there and you keep increasing the pressure to slow down, sometimes you have to just take the loss and go on the grass. If you snatch the brakes, these cars will, as we saw, insta-spin. It's just, there's no ABS. They're very long cars, they're very powerful, and their downforce comes off as you get slower, so you end up with just a submarine that you're trying to slow, and yeah, sometimes more brake isn't the best answer.
Meanwhile, in the top of our LMDh Pro category in our overall standings, Thiago Marto 1.3 seconds ahead of Andrew Dawson, who's actually leaving behind Philip Kraft. It looked like from qualifying, maybe Kraft would be the main rival to Marto in this race, but now that we're into the proper 60-minute event, Kraft is dropping time to both race clutch drivers. We're looking very good for an early 1-2 to boost their championship hopes in the early stages of this season. We are riding on board still with Hugo Pretty, who has got still a big train behind him. He's got Ibram, Madsen, Smith, Bia Chauvel and Zoffoli all on his tail. I think Mark Hutchinson might be in amongst those drivers as well, all trying to overtake the Portuguese.
Yeah, race clutch getting it done in 1, timing it with their team. I mean, their teammate being in 1 and 3 was actually more advantageous than 1 and 2, I feel, because the draft was easy to hand out. It was done the inside. Yeah, they can just focus on their race now. It's going to be very difficult for Kraft. But if he can stay, you know, a couple of seconds back when the first time through the LMP3s is going to cause a lot of time to be lost. So it's all still to play for sure.
Is that something that you relish when you come up to the slower cars? Because I remember when I used to drive the DP in the past, the Corvette C7 DP, the best, top 3 best car in iRacing in history.
Yep.
And we, for one season, for some sort of reason, we had the Porsche Cup in the IMSA Championship, and I used to absolutely relish that opportunity to overtake, as Rob Humphrey is doing some overtaking for himself on Remy Fortin. But I know that some drivers, don't particularly like that multi-class aspect of it. But yeah, have you got a positive mindset or a negative mindset when you're
positive? Everything for me for iRacing was in the GTE for years, so every race I did was multi-class, whether it's endurance, whether it's sprint, whether it's ILMS back in the day or IMSA. If you're leading, you don't want multi-class. But any other position than leading, of course, I enjoy it. It's something I have a lot of experience in, so I find I have my experience there gives me a bit of time on the track that sometimes I can't have from just raw speed. So yes, I'm going to vote love it. Always love it, unless you're leading.
Yes, yeah, and then you've got something to lose. And,
correct.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be in. Good position though for Bob Humphrey. Now he's up to 4th position. Took him a couple of corners to be able to make the move stick on Remy Fortin, but he's got it all done now. And Fortin's strong qualifying pace not quite being delivered at the moment. He is falling back, and even well, in fact, actually that's MDH, isn't it, behind? And I'll be making that mistake a fair few times this season, because it does look a little bit like, looks a bit like the Acura does the LMP3. I'm not quite sure. I might be wrong on that front.
I struggle. It's too new. So when I was doing IMSA recently in a GT, I couldn't tell the difference between an LMP2 or an LMDh in my mirror. It's just not something I'm used to yet, with the spoilers and everything. But yeah, the LMP3 is still quite new as well.
And who is going to win out on this one, trying to negotiate their way through? I think that's might be Fortin again, just being overtaken by the MDHs as they siphon their way through. And of course, there's only 8 minutes into the race, and of course a lot of that gap was formed as we've almost got a 3 wide scenario right there, and they're still going to go 3 wide. And because this is the part of the circuit where the LMDHs aren't necessarily a whole lot faster than the LMP3s, and we're going to have a cutback. Now we've got 4 wide for a brief second. It might return to be 4 wide because they've got a 1.5 kilometre straight coming up.
Yep, this is where fortune favours the brave unless you lock up. So yeah, we are going to see a move down the inside for sure. Who's going to take it?
Ibram coming up all the way to the inside. He's not going to let anyone take that position. But if he's breaking that early, you might not be able to take it. Now he does get the underneath move. Is he on the power a little bit early? I think he may have pulled that one off. Nick Madsen was ever so late on the brakes in the middle there.
I think Nick's
and Madsen might actually be able to win out on this one, and he does do so. Ibram had to turn out of the corner, and those couple of places he had gained, he loses, and he nearly makes contact to make his life worse.
Yeah, I think we're going to see this thing repeated over and over. If you're confident around the outside, it's definitely the right line to have. In an LMDh, there's just not enough traction and time to get a good run, and to be honest, being on the outside also gives you the, as we saw, the run into the next corner, which is easy to defend, very easy to defend.
That is a lovely tummy. I like to see that from Hugo Prieto, who had lost a couple of places before. He was in 8th position previously, and he did drop down to 11th, but he's back up to 10th now. And apologies, was that Aaron Smith actually making that move? I'm not entirely sure. It was Aaron Smith actually who's making that move, not Prieto. And you see Mark Hutchinson as well, pretty near these drivers who is being caught by Nakira at the moment. But well, we've got 3 different classes all battling against each other at the moment. And yeah, we start the chase again.
Yeah, it seems very tough in that last sector with the multi-class when they meet. Very tough. The LMP3 is almost looking bullied for space by the LMDHs. As we see if Nick can make me a lie. Can he make... Oh, very deep break in there to get that job done. And yeah, very impressive.
So close again to contact. I feel like this... Oh, and now there is contact there. And is that Hutchinson? Or was that... No, Nakura. I think that was Nakura, but I think Hutchinson was involved. Yeah, he was. So they're both lost out. That's our top 2 in the LMDh category, and that seems to be a cursed position already because we've had 3 leaders now, and all 3 of them have had significant issues. And it's now Balash Turoski who leads the way. Turoski started 8th out of the LMDh but has stormed his way all the way to the front as we get a replay at the start, and it was a very comfortable move for Andrew Dawson for 2nd place.
It was indeed, and I think the 3 wide behind all get through. This was impressive. It's good to see, very good to see. Yeah, they all get away well. I think it is just the last sector where we see the incident with the LMDHs. I think there was, what, 3 of them. I think 2 separate incidences. But apart from that, very... yeah, LMP3 starters, we see a swarm of green cars over... Who's this on the outside? I forget who it was.
That was Fortin.
Fortin losing out, yeah. Being absolutely swarmed by green. I see someone running the stock LMP3 livery back there. I do like that livery. It's very popular.
And this is Simonson having an incident and maybe just seeing the yellow flags ahead, not accelerating as much as he normally would. And ironically, it ends up making contact. And oh, it's just a 3 wide into one of the tightest corners on the circuit, and a couple of other drivers bundling in there and having to use their faster pair. This was Wilson being spun, and well,
hate to see it.
Didn't seem to be Wilson's fault on that occasion. And then everyone's trying to scatter either way behind.
Yeah, very hard. And Nucera's brake snatch. So
that was Madsen breaking so late in the middle there, and he managed to get it stopped because once he had the inside line for turn 3, he was going to be very tricky to beat.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to see this move into this corner a lot because of the draft you get into T1 and the difficulties with the traction off the corner. Ooh, that was faith in your car and your comrades around you.
Craft with an excellent livery as well, I should say. So I don't know if it's just the LMDh cars, but some really good liveries in this series. I'm a particular big fan of the Altitude esports car, which unfortunately now that Hutchinson isn't in the lead, we won't see quite as much of it in this broadcast. But certainly Phillips is a top 5 in the LMDHs.
Yeah, I think it's a class for people to get passionate about. Obviously, we know the passion that's out there for GT3s. It's been there for a long time. It's popular in real life. It's popular on you know, official broadcast, but this LMDh class is also the same. It has good diversity. It's very popular, and obviously we've got 4 classes, so I think we're going to see this get more and more popular from the public and the esport world in general. I think it's fantastic to see.
Well, we've still currently got everyone running. What a nice sight that is. Simone Nasura has had to come back to the pits, however. It's a setback for him. But the pit window, I imagine, might be open now. 46 minutes, I guess this is a high fuel consumption circuit, so it might be a bit far, but this is roughly the region that I think.
Close, yes. Now is, I don't know if I would want to box this lap without some fuel calculations, but for sure, I think we're close, very close.
So anyone who's carrying damage from the incidents that we've seen so far might see them into the pits. Just Nasura so far. Nasura stationing for a decent amount of time. I imagine he's going to take a couple of tyres and take the fuel he needs to get out. And yeah, 24 seconds. 24 seconds may be a little bit longer than I thought, honestly, for the fuel. But I guess that will mean that you can get both tyres on, and maybe even all 4 tyres.
I don't see it, because you haven't burnt enough fuel right now. That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
You can't... yeah, so yeah, you can make it to the end, but that's more to do with what's in the tank than what you're putting in, right?
Yeah.
So right now, I think you could just about make it on fuel. Whether you could put 2 tyres on, I don't think so. 15 minutes of running. I've been known to be wrong, much like your Fuji question.
Yes. Yeah. Grito and Biashuvel.
Looks like a little brush from behind. It's a very high-speed corner. Looks like they were following very closely, but doesn't seem too much damage.
Of course, the 130. Well, these couple of corners, pretty much a couple of the corners which have absolutely stayed with this circuit throughout its existence. As turn 1 being introduced a fair bit later. Positive Loy moving up to, or losing out, in fact, to Ferrari. There, Ferrari now 2 places. Loy's still up 5 places, to be fair, so he's had a good race, but a little bit off the pace in comparison to some of his main rivals. And also just an update as well, and here is the LMP3s. As now they're going to go 3 wide again, and got to have good awareness in this situation, and having absolutely none of that was Tom Stevens. He's like, no, I know I'm not going to be anywhere near the apex. And actually, you can see how slow he was on the entry there, and he still might be able to pull off a move just a couple of corners later. Yeah. And to go defensive is Fortan, who has lost some 5 seconds to the other LMP3s now. And Stevens has to wait behind, but now that they're about to go onto the straight, you can't help but feel like the Evo SR driver might make it a hat-trick of Evo SR cars, which have got past Fortan so far in this race.
Yep, it's looking that way. We're seeing the race clutch, is it QT? Extend his lead to 6 seconds now, so he navigated the traffic perfectly. That's, unless there was an incident I didn't see with Dawson. We're seeing Dawson 6 back, Craft 9 back, the other Craft with a K12 back. But yeah, QT looking very impressive out there. Obviously the gap in the AM, but when I say gap in the AM is 2 seconds, obviously there could be a pro in between that. And State and Dan separated by 3/10 with P3 2.5 seconds back. But as I say, every time we go through the traffic, it shakes things up big time. Oh, that's the replay. I'm new here.
Thanks to everyone, by the way, who's tuned in so far today. Very much appreciate it. Over 70 viewers watching this first round of the championship. And I mean, if you're interested in getting out on circuit, sign-ups are still open for this series in both the LMP3 and the LMDh categories. So do visit apexracingleague.com in order to get signed up. And you can also sign up for our new Super Formula Championship as well. Apex Racing Academy Super Formula series. And,
that's a great car.
It's a very cool car, isn't it? And really, if you want to get into high-powered single-seaters, it's the car to go to. And I know that there are a lot of fans, pretty much anyone who's into a Formula 1, are going to be enjoying that car because it is rapid. Dare I say, maybe a bit unrealistically rapid. I think in my first lap, I was able to break lap records from real life, and I am not very quick. So basically, if you want to drive an F1 car, it's absolutely the car to go for. So do check out apexracingleague.com in order to see more details and to register for the series.
So fun fact, I did an ARL race once, Brands Hatch. Things were looking really good for me. It was set into 2 heats.
I know what happens, yeah.
Yeah, and I got into chat in the second race, and I forgot to grid. Yes, so I started, I think it was like 35th or something stupid like that.
I think you were maybe like 4th?
Yeah, I don't talk about it. And I was excited. It was my home track. I had the pace for once, and I was... the one thing I always forget, like I said, gaps in knowledge, heat races, that second race, the gap's always a lot smaller than we're used to.
1 minute.
Yeah. And I talk for longer than 1 minute.
And of course, if you want to see that clip, it is somewhere on the Apex Racing TV social medias. All of David's embarrassments in life are on somewhere on the Apex Racing social media. So do just follow all of them if you want to see that all. Philip Craft is still in 4th position. Of course, he's behind Daniel Craft, which is annoying, but he is still clear of Paul Busby and Andre Viella. And this is pretty much the closest batsman now out in the LMDh. As we saw earlier on, everyone was so close to one another. But the gaps have gradually opened up, at least for the positions in classes. I mean, the accuracy is so good, doesn't it?
It does. It's phenomenal.
It's a proper, like, almost V10-esque kind of scream in that car. But he is powering in enough at the moment, but he is being caught significantly by Busby and Villela behind us. Now they're having to go through some of the leading LMP3s.
Yeah, out of all the LMDHs that will need to have a tyre strat in the bag for an hour-long race, it is the Acura. It suffers with almost like turbo lag off the corners, which can be compensated by just getting on that throttle early, even if it's not perfect traction, but you need to get some throttle input in. But that hurts the tyres, especially the rears, and it's a hot track, an hour-long race, and those Acuras, well, yeah, I haven't lasted an hour yet, put it that way.
Yeah, we saw at Hungaroring last season in this championship, back when we just had the BMW, the drivers really struggling for tyres at the end, and the car becomes almost undrivable when the rears go off, and even Marteau crashed out from the lead on that scenario. And
we have a QT cam. There you go, purple.
Yeah. He's really good at that kind of, like, every endurance race. Of course, we should say ASUS Apex Racing League endurance champion from about a month ago was QT.
That is a Formula seating position I've ever seen one before.
Exactly.
I'd fall asleep in that position.
He did come visit the Apex Racing Sim Sensor a few weeks ago and gave a go the VRS rigs, and he was impressed, particularly the pedals. He was very impressed by was QT. There are some images on our Apex Racing League social media platforms of him doing some laps. And yeah, he was very much impressed. So I'm not sure if he's going to stick with that Formula position forever necessarily. I think he's open for change.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could handle that. Not 5 hours a day, every day in a lay-in position. I don't think that would be wise.
That's Dawson now just closing the gap a little bit. It's just under 6 seconds, but really with the traffic elements of it, you do feel like that's going to ebb and flow as the race goes on. Top 3 in the LMP3s is very close. Adam State still leading the way. I can't help but feel that maybe Sedgley and Humphrey are waiting behind. In fact, sorry, so Sedgley, of course, starting from pole.
Yep.
State has taken the lead. I'm not entirely sure when that's happened, but it seems like they're sort of sparring at the moment.
Yep.
Gap going up to 0.6 of a second now. Humphrey a further 0.6 of a second behind. So I wonder if State's trying to make a bit of a break right now, trying to break that draft, but I'm honestly not sure if he's necessarily got the pace to do so, because these guys have been glued to one another ever since the green flag.
Yeah, I think we saw the move. It was in the final sector. It was just managed to, I think it was just traffic. He managed to just get on alongside, and I don't think Dan fought it too hard. He knows there's a long way to go, and Adam's very quick. So, yeah, I think, to be honest, right now, seeing how close Humphrey is as well, Dan's probably just glad to be running up the front. And having someone that close in front of you in traffic can be advantageous. If they split a hole in the traffic, you follow. If they're about to enter a mistake or it looks like the position's closing, you take the other line. So following can be advantageous as long as you're close. You've got to be close. If you're not close, it can always be the opposite, because ruckuses get caused in front and then you deal with the aftermath all the time. So being as close as he is works.
And here's a few replays as well of earlier on. And this is Hutchinson. Oh, so that was Hutchinson, the car ahead. And
yeah, I think he was just trying to clear the LMP3 on the outside and clip the inside car.
Hutchinson as well affiliated with the Evo drivers, so he's particularly desperate not to hit them. that was the mistake. So no
Oh,
tap
so there
there.
was no contact there. That was just close racing.
And a mistake locking up. And actually, this may have been for the LMP3 lead. And
Yeah, this is the move we saw. Yeah.
had to work away there, and this did allow Humphrey to catch up by a fair amount of time.
Yes, indeed. Nicely executed. He saw the lock up. Let's see, out of the last corner.
Yeah, and Sergio just, I think, having to wait behind on that occasion, as I'll do this as Hutchinson as well. That's almost a carbon copy of what happened earlier on with cars running wide at turn 1. And I don't want to see that livery get any more damage on it. What a dive that is. Well, I mean, thank goodness you Coulson missed the apex there, because either way...
Someone else had booked it.
Yeah.
Although he's running
has he got
slowly.
damage? Has he got a slowdown?
No, not sure.
I wonder if that's a hardware issue for him. He's just had to stop the car.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, he's trying to go again. Something is wrong for sure. Looks like it. Yeah, could be an internet. He just despawned. Does look like, is he missing something in his room? I'm not sure, but looks like a technical issue.
Sometimes people say, should you have unreliability in sim racing? But I think scenarios like that, where something has gone on in the real world with hardware or connection, and
Yeah, we don't
just done an electric motor reset right there to get back going.
Yeah, we don't need unreliability provided by the sims, because we have the same equal issue opportunity as a
we're
real life driver
competent as well.
Yeah,
So-
we have wheel issues, pedal issues, internet issues, screen issues. I mean, while these aren't the same issues the real life drivers has, they are issues nevertheless that ruin our race, and it happens more times a season than we want, and there's nothing we can do about it, and it is determined by luck.
Oh, this is a dangerous position now for the leaders. And look at that, that's gone wide for the Porsche. And, well, there's not going to be a change for the LMP3 drivers. I think there might be some changes in the LMDhs, the 243 of Jonas Simonsen there. I think actually losing out to a couple of the pro drivers in the LMDhs. And so a couple of bad corners for him. I think that was Andre Viella just moving past him, the Portuguese driver.
Yeah, that's something we have to remember when the LMDHs are trying to attack the LMP3s, is that the braking distances on an LMDh aren't great. It's not like a GT3 or an LMP, especially an LMP2, where you can get that late brake done. The LMDHs do brake, I would say, almost one braking board earlier than, say, an LMP3, which can make it awkward.
I think it's time for another question.
Oh God,
to help you save your blushes. So I don't know how much you know about the history of this circuit, but of course originally it was meant to be an oval because they're in affiliation with NASCAR. However, they built the first corner, ran out of money, and they just had to turn the rest of it into a road course. But they did still use the bank's first corner, which went into like the mountains and stuff for a while. But what decade did they stop using the bank's first corner? I don't know if you have you seen the bank's first.
I haven't even seen.
No, you haven't even seen. Okay, so it's quite a tough question then, isn't it?
No, my knowledge on of all the questions you could ask, my knowledge on Fuji is low. I only recently my first time driving it was when introduced by iRacing, and even then just with my schedule and so busy, it took me maybe a whole season extra to finally take the time to learn it, because it's a tricky old track, I find. It's a technical track, especially in that last sector. I have no idea.
So you got to think that it was deemed to be unsafe. So when do you reckon that they would have said,
okay,
this 200-mile-an-hour banked corner flat out with 40 degrees of bankering, it's too dangerous, we're going to get rid of it?
I will go with the same answer I gave you for when I thought Formula 1 went down. Because, yeah, so it's got to be before the 2000s. Track safety by then was, the FIA had regimented very strict rulings on runoffs, safety barriers, and it changed a lot of tracks. So, yeah, I'm going to stick to my first answer.
1994 specifically.
Yeah, specifically for a decade, yes.
Well, I mean, good logic, but you're wrong. 1970s.
70s, okay. I would have never got that.
1974, I believe. So F1 never used this. and Lee Thompson just saying in the production room that he's got that one right. So let's us know if he got that right. That is a spin. And that was State from the race lead as well, so Sedgley moves past. There was a pit stop as well for Bob Humphrey, so he's already pitted, so Humphrey out of position, but of course Humphrey will move ahead of State as well. That's, yeah, awful news there for State. And,
well, no damage, so he didn't get hit by the now leader Sedgley, so he's still in this, but yeah, 5 seconds. Not the end of the world for he's still got half an hour left, and we know he's quick enough.
And how did 14 get so close to Sedgley as well? Because 14 was a few seconds back.
Yeah, that last run through the LMDhs, which we saw them get up close, it got very tricky in the last sector. I think we were focusing on the LMDhs, but the poor LMP3s were being bullied.
Yes. So maybe Humphrey pitting to get out of that squabble, and he might well be the leader. But of course, we're still waiting for pit stops. They're limited to 70% fuel. Are the drivers in the LMP3 category, and well, that should equate to about 45 minutes in terms of fuel. But if they're taking tyres, then you probably want to pit at the midway stage so you get the best tyres across the entire race. So yeah, a decision for them to make. And of course, if they are taking tyres, then you can afford to take a bit extra fuel at your pit stop, because you're not going to lose any time because you're taking tyres and fuel simultaneously.
I'm not sure about LMP3 tyres, whether you'd need them. I'm not sure. LMDhs, I reckon, definitely 2 tyres.
So this was shortly before Hugh Coulson had his resets, and so this was the instant for State. And
oh, it looks like he had to overslow for one of those green.
It was almost as though he was on the throttle and then had to get out of the throttle, and that unsettled the car.
Yeah, it looks like he committed to the throttle and it just wasn't there, and I think he's come off the throttle and lost the rear. Yeah, easy done, but he's avoided damage, so 7 seconds back. Tyres will be a little warm.
A couple of the effects drivers in, Paul Busby and James Ibram in the LMDh Pro category. So that very much indicates that we might see a few more stops to come. And you can see he's on the jacks, so he's taking tyres, no surprise with that. And we do think it'll be the rear tyres. Could maybe just be left side tyres, I guess. But
yeah, so he's
rear tyres.
Definitely got fuel left in the tank, so I think Paul has timed this very well. He can probably take 2 rear tyres without losing any time and run to the end with a high performance car. And like I say, if anyone leaves it to that last 15 minutes to box, I'm pretty sure 2 tyres will cost them time. Pretty sure. Haven't done any research whatsoever.
Well, you know more than me, so you are the most knowledgeable person at this desk.
Okay, I'll take that as a win.
Segro, who has had his fair amount of incidents so far as Segro, but he's in amongst these drivers at the moment. He is trying to find him on the board actually. Is Segro, but he's currently 14th out of the LMDh pros. Max Voss very much by himself a Mag Performance SRT. Got a few of his Mag Performance teammates involved, including Nick Madsen. And Aaron Smith comes into the pits. He's had a good run of it so far. As Smith, he's looking for an overall top 10. He'd be pleased with that one. Really, not many of the abs are battling with the pros. I mean, we've got Balázs Turovsky, who I think is currently the 10th highest placed pro, but I think that's with a few of the pros already pitting. So I think we're not going to see any abs claiming a spot in the top 10, which was, of course, not the case in qualifying. But yeah, a few setbacks for our amateur drivers, such as Nakura and Hutchinson, who are trying to recover still. But yeah, they've had a fair few setbacks in that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, that's what separates the pro group and their I rating they've accumulated to the AMs. Getting one lap in that you've practiced over and over again, maybe for an entire day or multiple days or even a week, that's one thing. Doing it on the day, plus lasting an hour, plus navigating traffic well, plus nailing your pit stop, plus keeping calm, that's something altogether different. So that's why you're going to see naturally the pros climb forward. Their pit stops are going to be quicker because they will be taking less fuel than the AMs. It's just one of those things. Like what we talk about a lot in the community, that one lap while makes you, it is one way to be quick, but it's your average lap over an entire race that is the metric that is really used.
I think we may have seen a car off the circuit at turn 1 a few moments ago. I believe it was Chauvel. He went wide, lost some 8 seconds, so he's in 12th position now as Chauvel. He's the only driver in the entire field who's in the same place where he started.
QT and Dawson are in.
And yeah, our top 2, and yeah, QT just taking a quick drink. He's got some time. He can take all 4 tyres, probably still be in
and
the
a
lead.
drink and a chill, and he's laying down.
on the course for his 6th title if he won this year. Big if. It's not even got round 1 complete yet, but it's looking ominous. And of course, no other driver has got more than 2, I believe. I think Will Redford with a couple, Tobias Olsen with a couple as well in various championships. But Mate very much making a decent amount of headway at the moment. And yeah, Wall clear with 5 at the moment and looking for a 6th.
And both our crafts are 1 and 2 now, and obviously they do need to pit. But it'll be interesting to see when they come in. Craft for C leading out with Craft for K.
Interesting that James Ibram and, well no, just Ibram just took 12 seconds of fuel.
Yeah, and no, Lorenzo as well, 12 seconds as well.
But what's bizarre is that Ibram and Busby, I believe, are teammates, and yet they didn't take the same amount of fuel. Or they aren't using the same strategy.
Not sure either. We're either seeing the other drivers take all 4 tyres, but a 5K driver in a 1-hour race is not going to spend 10 seconds in the pits to get 2 extra tyres. So I was wondering this as well. It's too much time. It's 15 seconds. So not sure on that. Not sure. I don't think it can be fuel, is what I'm saying. That's too long a time. That's almost the length of time for an entire fuel tank, let alone. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, we will see what his laps are like, and yeah, see if he does get to the end of the race all right as well as Dawson. This is not for position really. Chauvel still with a pit stop to make, and it is interesting to see so many early pit stops. We did not get this in season 1, but I think with the extra traffic that we got for this season, with the extra cars that we got out on track, some alternative strategies are being used, and maybe the drivers being made aware as well of the advantage of fresh tyres at that midpoint of the race, taking that into consideration as well. That affects Simulations car, another good-looking machine. Always do have good hints to those drivers. He's got Hosu El-Zugare behind and Anthony Sigro. None of these drivers have pitted so far.
This is the problem, right? You're not entitled to pass them. There are no blue flags. They just haven't pitted. Of course, they're going to not wave you through. You're running higher fuel than them. This is one of the issues with boxing early on a field where we're seeing the lap time so split from the fastest 10 to the slowest 10. This is always the worry. It's not the longest track in the world. We're seeing the traffic cause a big spread across the field. So, yeah, the benefit of pitting early is timing your fuel and getting those 2 freshes and running to the end. The downside is what we're seeing right now, where you could stand to lose 4 or 5 tenths a lap every lap, and you can flash your lights all you want. They have no reason to let you by.
Couple of drivers actually storming into the pit lane. Always gets flashbacks to Peter Berryman messing up the Zandvoort pit entry at in the Grand Prix World Championship many years ago, like 2018, I want to say. Lost the chance to win that specific race, and yeah, since then always careful about the drivers locking up and potentially speeding on pit entry. David Vey in 2nd place, but Turoshki is absolutely well clear. Hutchinson, of course, with those spins earlier on, he's coming back, but let's see, Turoshki is yeah, 15 seconds is an absolutely huge margin at the moment for him. So looking ominously strong is Turoshki at the moment, who sort of came out of nowhere. Did race last season, did Turoshki. Cannot remember off the top of my head where he finished, but I think he was in the top 5 in the amateur category by the end. We did have a lot of different winners as well in the amateur category, so I think he did win one of the rounds, did Balash. It's good to see him return and be up there once again. Here is Zoffoli with another one of the green liveries out on track, and he's battling with Max Voss. And both these guys have come into the pit, but Zoffoli didn't seem to take at least as many tyres as the other driver, so he might be a bit of a sitting duck.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see Kraft's and Viela's times. Really will help answer some questions. Well, we see Philip Kraft do a 10-second pit stop. So again, I am unsure. I think Daniel Kraft is out there wondering what everyone else's strategy is. He keeps looking down at his black box thinking, I haven't got a pit yet.
We've still got 7 drivers in the MDHs to come into the pits. Unfortunately, we have 3 retirees, all in the MDH class. A couple of AMs, Willoughby and Yukulson, and then the pro of Lars Devan to retire so far in this race. If we ended up with just 3 casualties out of 45 odd drivers, be a decent result for the first round. Of course, the drivers do get a faster pair for themselves to use to help them out with any difficulties.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see these pit strategies, because we're seeing Paul Busby in 15th, and there's only 5, 6 cars left to pit in front of him, so he definitely has lost positions, a lot of positions through the pit stop phase. Let's see. Let's see.
His pace isn't that fantastic either for Busby, 127.1.
No.
That's only 3/10 off his best lap time so far. He's actually got Aaron Smith behind him, who's also lost a lot of time during the pit stops. Smith is going to try to mug Busby right here, and he might be successful in doing so. Busby became aware of it once Smith came alongside, but he does hold on. But these guys, both with fresher tyres, we believe, they need to be setting times without costing each other a whole lot of pace. And just this batsman's lost them a second to Max Voss ahead.
Yeah, I think Paul's definitely lost some time somewhere in the last 2 laps. I think I caught it at the corner of my eye. He has lost 3 or 4 positions. I feel something happened.
Yeah, so he did lose. Oh no, it wasn't an awful lap last time around. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you had an incident a couple of laps ago.
Yeah. I mean, it is tight back there, and especially with people coming out of the pits, it can provoke battles into T1 immediately. Oh, as we see them getting quite close to each other. I still think the outside line is always going to win this battle. Let's see if I'm right, but I don't see how the inside line can win this following left-hander. As we see again. Just doesn't seem to pay.
Yeah, it's a fairly wide circuit this, but still not wide enough to pull that off. So this is Kev Copeland and Adam States, and so that's where he lost the time.
There you go. So you can practice T1 all you want, but if you're doing it on pit exit, it's different.
B.A. Chauvel, who we saw the off-board earlier on, and Simonson, he just got nicked. It's ironic, because had he taken the racing line, he would have been fine there, Simonson, but he
nearly avoided that. Very, very nearly avoided that. That was unfortunate.
Also, it's just incredible how similar that Copeland incident with State was to Buemi and Massa back in 2008 Fuji, which obviously famously was the last F1 race held at the Fuji Speedway.
Wow, Mr. Memory over there. Holy hell.
It's really weird. Buemi just started talking about red carpets after the race and complaining about Massa, but anyone else who has fond memories of being a 7-year-old back in those times, do let us know in the chat. Simone Nucera has, I think, had a bit of an issue in 6th place in the LMDh AMS, but I think he's back going. As look at that, Marseille having to be aware of who was around him. Basically race leader, almost having contact with him now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when Nick Marsden comes out. Something also, he's 30 seconds behind Daniel Kraft, and neither of them have pitted. And just by eyeballing this, Nick Marsden he's not going to be inside the top 10. That's what I'm predicting. I don't know what's happened. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm new to this software and I'm eyeballing it here, but it doesn't look great for him as we see Hugo Prieto come into the pits.
Yeah, he's a long way behind Dan Kraft, isn't he?
Very, very long way behind.
Yeah.
I mean, he has QT 10 seconds behind him, and he has a pit stop to make.
A lot has happened in this race, and hopefully we'll get a few interviews with drivers later on to try to pick together exactly what has happened. Yeah, this man has had probably the easiest race of everyone. Thiago Marteau, pole position, took his pit stop, as Remy Fortin, I think, might be out of the race. He just came out of the pits, and I think was around Adam States.
Yeah.
But he is not appearing at the moment. You can see on the timing tower he is got a time on his thing. He's got a distance instead. So he's actually leading the way in the LMP3s ahead of States and Fortan. Now, Humphrey, I didn't realise that Bob Humphrey absolutely messed up his pit entry earlier on. So he took over 1 minute, and I thought, oh, that's a bit of a long time for the LMP3s to be stationary, but maybe they, you know, drip the fuel into the tank with a pipette or something. But that's not the case. I think he sped because he's 40 seconds longer in the pit stop, well, 50 seconds longer in the pit stop than the other drivers. So I think Humphrey sped on pit entry, and that's why he is very detached now.
It is a brutal penalty. Brutal. There is never a recovery from that penalty, unfortunately.
But I think he's lost even more time as well later on as Humphrey, but he is ahead of Fortan now because Fortan's connection is still lacking. And so our P3 starter is heading back. So it means that Joseph Saul now, with the issues for other drivers, he's now in the podium places in the LMP3s.
So fun fact about this track, I don't know if you saw in the IMSA Fixed series official, not the IMSA Open, the new one, the IMSA Fixed. It was very popular for LMDhs to fuel save and not pit. Because of how slow pit lane is here and how you lose almost over a lap, it was made pretty aware pretty quickly that set a fuel target, clutch in, lift, you can go the entire race without a pit.
Oh, that's a slide, that's contact as well. Paul Busby, that's his second incident that he's had at turn 1 so far in this race.
The problem is once you've had an incident and you've cooked these tyres, when the track temp's this hot, it's not easy to cool them down. It's just a runaway effect now he's going to be feeling. And he could have some damage from the knots and spins. And God forbid, floor damage with all these giant curbs here.
Yeah, it really is compounding for him at the moment. This is probably the closest battle we have out on circuit. Wilson in P4, he's up 9 places. Alzugare in P5, he's up 12 places. Then you've got Kraft, he's been dropping back as this race has gone on and had a very short pit stop, did Kraft. But he has taken a pit stop. So Kraft's basically in second place. So yeah, Kraft of course ahead of Dawson because Dawson was stationary for way longer, but Dawson is a second a lap faster.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 different battles at the moment going on in this fight. Wilson and Alzugare still need to fight, still need to pit, but Kraft and Dawson have pitted, and so the front 2 in this pack are battling and the back 2 in this pack are battling.
What?
That was ambitious.
Yes, flashing lights does not make your move on. Yeah, I think he was just kind of hoping he saw him. He was being challenged from behind. Pressure from Dawson must be brutal. We know he's quick, very quick. And I think he's possibly going to get it done here. No, a little bit further back than planned. So I don't know if you've seen the new damage model. By damage model, I mean what gets damaged and what effects it has. Whereas previously we've seen small knocks cause straight line damage that essentially ruins your race because you have no straight line speed. This seems to be remedied pretty much now. But what it does do is make your car notoriously hard to drive, aero-wise. So if you're a really good driver, you can sort of adapt while you're driving and make it work. But I love this change. So on the straights, like at Le Mans, you've seen it at Le Mans where your car's a little bit damaged and now you're 25 kph down in a straight line, ruining your race. Now it's just going to be in corners, mid-corner, it's going to be very tricky to hold on.
I think that's a good thing. It's more realistic to see as well.
It's fantastic change, yeah.
So, no, I look forward to that. And at least it means that you can defend a bit more as well. As long as you can keep it in a straight line. The corners, as Dawson, not with the straight line speed, the drafts in this car notoriously low. They haven't strengthened the drafts, do you know, in this car? Because at least when it first came out, it was remarkable.
They lowered it from...
oh, it's even lower now, is it?
Well, no, I think on week 13, when it was out, it was at its maximum.
Right.
And I believe the early patch that came in changed it. I don't think they said in so many words. It was just my personal experience. And since then, I don't know if any changes have been made since the patch when it first came out.
And Dawson is up into effective second position now. Feel like it was only a matter of time. He is a lot faster than Crafts right now. Crafts is going to try to put him on the defence, but I can't help but feel like this is a losing battle. And once they get through the next section of corners, it will be Dawson pulling away. And you can see straight away that the extra traction that he's got from the chicane enough to allow him to pull away. So it's back to basically a race clutch 1-2, but once again, obviously, Kraft does still need to pit along with Madsen, Wilson and Alzagari.
Well, let's say Daniel Craft might be awarded Fuel Saver of the Year award if he never pits.
Do they have fuel limits in the official series? Like, are they limited to fuel? Because it's 45 minute
LMDh
races.
is, yes.
Okay.
I just don't know what percent. Because we had people in the IMSA Endurance messaging on voice announcing that they've put on the IMSA set, thus being short of fuel. So that's how I know it is a difference. I just don't know what the difference was. It was quite substantial. I want to say like 30 litres of something like that.
Okay.
It was something around that. I've only done 2 LMDh officials and 1 endurance official. So yeah, I've got very limited knowledge in official running in these cars.
Well, let us know if you think it's absolutely possible whatsoever
No way.
in terms of the going to the hour. But I mean, we're 11 minutes away.
No way. No way, they can't.
Come on, Daniel, do it.
No way, not an hour.
To be fair, he hasn't been backing up. I mean, his pace has been pretty relentless. But yeah, going beyond the 50-minute mark is certainly longer than I thought. Maybe when we go to other circuits later on in the season, maybe they will be getting even closer to the end. As a 65% fuel limit for IMSA. Thank you, Mark Gusters, for letting us know that.
That's my teammate, Mark. Hello, Mark. So, did you say this is limited fuel in this? Yeah, LMDh is here. Limited or unlimited fuel?
Unlimited in this series, yeah.
Huh.
You think that maybe they will do it?
Well, no, you can't. No, I'm not talking about it. You can't do an hour. No way. I mean, not that I have any experience with it, no, but I'm going to...
I mean, in my experience, around most circuits, it's 45 minutes in the LMDh, so that's why I'm surprised it's gone this far. But I think these guys have pushed as hard as they can. And they got to the 50 minutes. Dan Craft will do a little bit longer. Also, Joshua Wilson being able to complete the extra lap. But yeah, Madsen's going to drop outside the top 10, you would have thought. Is he going to bother take tyres? I think he is. I mean, it's ticking up to 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds.
Let's see the losses.
Unless maybe Madsen's got a penalty or something, because he's stationary for a very long time.
Oh, that's a shame. I already thought he was going to be in... No, 23, which we're seeing some drivers do.
I mean, that seems obscene, eh? I mean, yeah, he needs to take 10 seconds worth of fuel, and he's taking tyres at this point of the race. Seems a bit pointless with 10 minutes to go, no?
This was the first thing that jumped out at me at a track like this, why you would wait to the end to take fuel. This is why I would have boxed. The second I knew I could get my rears for free, I would have been in that lap, and not a lap later. You're right. But the reason he's probably taking tyres is more of a case of he's probably been struggling the last couple of laps, and now he's about to fill up with more fuel. So it's not a case of strategy, it might just be forced upon him. But we're seeing Daniel finally into the pits, which does suggest with some more practice he might have been able to do it with only 8.5 minutes left to go.
So he should come out in third position. I thought as, Dan Sedgley from the lead. And whereas Adam State, Sedgley's taking an unusual way back by driving backwards. And
well, I don't think he went to rejoin.
Costing him. State, that gap's going to close very soon. 3 seconds now, the difference. And Adam State, after a spin at this hairpin earlier on in the race, all of a sudden he realised that he's actually got a chance at winning this event. He's got 2.3 seconds to catch in the 8 minutes that remain. Yeah,
and Dan Sedgley's tyres are going to be cooked. And if he was struggling already, I don't think the spin was tyres. It looked like he bottomed out over a curb and had steering input in and it came round on him. But it's going to be a tricky... Now he's looking in his mirror. He was not looking in his mirror with a 13-second gap, but now he'll have to.
So Daniel Craft has come out of the pits in second position. In fact, he's only 5.3 seconds behind Marteau. He was not far off the lead. Now, I think he's going to be struggling in these closing stages because he didn't take any tyres. Or if he did, he took 1 tyre. And so he will be slow to the end of the race. But, I mean, Craft, what a strategy this is. He's got 11 seconds ahead of Dawson. Dawson, I don't think he's going to make up that time in the time remaining, because Craft took the same strategy as Craft by not... I've just said Craft took the same strategy as Craft. Daniel Craft took the same strategy as Philip Craft. Yeah. And Philip's not that much slower than Andrew Dawson right now.
I think the people that absolutely nailed it was Philip Craft, Viella, James Ibram. This looks to be the best strategy, because we're seeing people like Max Foss, Paul Busby, Nick Madston, Joshua Wilson, all behind these guys. So it looks like their strategy paid off. But then again, they've got to run 7 more minutes. It's
these closing stages, isn't it, where they can really go off and the tyres. So
I ran Watkins Glen 6 hour and I got a meatball flag for my tyres hitting zero on pit entry. Thank God it was on pit entry, but I was losing 2.5 seconds a lap at one point. Oh.
So this was Robinson and Paul Joseph Clist. And this was another instant for Busby, and it's again that rear locking.
Yeah, he's just snatching the brakes.
So Joseph Saul spinning.
Ooh.
And
Well
great
dodged.
avoidance from the LMDh. Slowing to a halt through the penultimate corner. And of course, this was the move that Dawson managed to pull off on Philip Craft a few laps ago.
Yeah, impressive stuff. Race clutch have looked good today. Yeah, Daniel Craft, very impressive. 5 seconds off the lead when we know QT was building quite the gap. So you see Dawson here, P3. On, who is that? The blue car?
I think that was someone who's now pitted.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it looks like he... Yeah, when he came off the curb, he had steering input in, which, I mean, we all would have had, because you got to turn at some point, if not the wall.
So essentially he's been able to dampen the issues then with that spin, because we were very much concerned with his tyres overheating, that he'd lose more time, but he's been able to weather that, and it's still 3.2 seconds, the gap between Sedgley and State at the top of the LMP3. So Sedgley's still looking good to win that one. Humphrey, by the way, of course, 1 minute 7 behind, but he lost at least 40 seconds with a penalty during his pit stop. And he may have had another setback as well. He was right with those guys earlier on. He'll be happy to finish in P3. His teammates Stevens and Saul behind. Paul Joseph Cliff's recently having an issue, and that might put him into the clutches of Kev Copeland by the end of the race. That's the battle for 6th and 7th.
As we see Mac Cam running 8th in LMDh AM. Not long to go now. 4.5 minutes.
Who's that on his shirt? Mick George? Do you know who that is?
I do not. I was just trying to... I was trying to work out what the kit is to try and work out what that is, but not many sports have the name on the front, so...
Yeah, it's a good shout.
It's not a sport I know.
Maybe a big curling fan or something. I hate
curling. Do they have shirts, merchandise?
I'd be interested in it if they do. Always love the curling. This is getting very tight. All of a sudden, this gap is absolutely being decimated between Blaž Turovsky and Ben Cullen. Ben Cullen hasn't been leading this whole way, but he did take more tyres, I think, than Turovsky earlier on. I don't think Turovsky took any. I think Cullen took 2, do you think? Or do you think that'd be enough for 4 for Cullen?
I'm really not sure on these times. I've been completely thrown out. I'm not sure why drivers would want 4 here. It was never going to be free with an hour race. I assumed 2 would be the strategy call. It does look like 0 was... I mean, it might be quite painful for them, but it does look like 0 tyres was the call. Unless, of course...
Hutchinson now is... apologies, maybe... Apologies, no, I'm reading... Our timing screens are coming up with slightly different stuff, but it makes sense. Turovsky is not being caught by Cullen. The gap is still 18 seconds. But Cullen is being caught by Hutchinson at the moment. But, yeah, Turovsky's strategy, at least, I think he's another one of these guys who didn't take tyres. And, yeah, as you say, that was the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we could be seeing... I'm not sure. As I say, my LMDh knowledge is not the greatest. That's what I'm going to brush up on. But we could be seeing the difference here between 2 tyres and 4 tyres if the 2 tyres were free. Remember, we look... Free tyres are hard to spot on a timing screen because they don't incur any time loss. So the closing minutes. QT has recently extended his gap by 3 seconds, so maybe Daniel is struggling out there. 8.5 seconds. What was it? 5 seconds when he came out the pits?
Yes, I think you're right, yeah.
So definitely 3 seconds lost there.
But yeah, certainly Dawson's not going to catch in time. I mean, it might be a second a lap that he's catching, but will come up quite far short.
Yeah, was it 7 seconds at the moment he's back? Less, well, Daniel does seem to be struggling. He's now 9 seconds back off QT, but this could just be the traffic he's in. Happens like that, ebbs and flows on track. So sometimes, again, it's quite difficult to spot. Seeing Aaron Smith and Max Voss very close on track.
By the way, apparently Mick George is a company. All I can find is a company to sell skips at the moment. So
a skip.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They sell merch.
Sorry?
They sell merch.
Well, clearly they do, because, I mean, he's got a shirt of them. So there's some great sponsorship there.
Brilliant.
Even though I'm not sure what the product is.
I am now hoping it's his own business, not a fan base.
Yeah. Cullen now being overtaken by Hutchinson, surely, who has been on the comeback ever since an incident at turn 1. Only 10 minutes into the race from the lead as well of the LMDh AMs, but he's been able to recover back up into second place. What a mighty effort that is from Mark Hutchinson. Getting himself right back into play in his category. David Bray might be getting close to these guys as well by the end of the race. He's some second and a half a lap faster, but with 5 seconds to gain, it looks like he's going to be a few seconds short. But yeah, good recovery from Hutchinson, whilst a lot of the other top LMDh AMs have had really days to pick up.
Yeah, it's been tough. Obviously, Ben's not out of it. It's still very close on track. We are seeing QT absolutely flying. Absolutely flying. So it goes to show that the tyres were definitely the right call for pace. But it's one thing to remember when you're low on wear and low on lap time, the time you lose in traffic would be the same on fresh tyre as it would on old. So it's tough on a track like this where it has been so busy with traffic. In that last sector, very difficult to squirm through and not lose time to the slower class. And
this is the last lap. We're just going to fall short of making the extra lap because it's such a long run. And so the checker flag is going to be waving. And Thiago Marte was able to take 5 victories last season. He's going to take his first of the season as well. Thiago Marte for a race clutch sets off with a perfect start. There was an Evo car in the background spun round. Was it? It could have been Kev Copeland, maybe. He was spun round right at the close. Daniel Kraft will finish in second place in the LMDh Pros. And Andrew Dawson will be a little bit disappointed with that under the radar, being caught out and only finishing in 3rd position. But Ashtarovsky is going to be top of the LMDh AMs, it looks like. And yeah, there's not going to be any late changes there. 20 seconds clear is Tarovsky. In the LMP3s, it is going to be Daniel Sedgley. And despite a late spin for him, it wasn't enough to lose the lead. That spin for Adam States in the middle part of the race, too costly. And it is a good start for Olympus Esports, with Dan Sedgley taking the race win for 3-2-9 car. And there is Balash Tarowski finally coming up to the line. And from 8th on the grid out of the LMDh AMs, 8th out of 13, he was able to win. Yeah. What a performance, and fantastic race pace to win by 20 seconds.
Yeah, impressive, and very impressive. He might find himself in the pro class before long. Very impressive. Just looking at the Daniel Kraft, Andrew Dawson battle, there was that 17-second pit difference, and he was only beaten by 5. Yes. So maybe some more homework needed for him, unfortunately, with Daniel Kraft's strategy there. And the people behind him as well, Philip Kraft and Andrew Viella, again, close, also 17 seconds less in the pits.
Well, a really interesting race when it comes to strategy, particularly in the LMDh class. Was that race throughout, and yeah, we will soon get a chat with a few of our drivers, but we'll go to a quick advert and we'll be back in the studio in just a few moments' time. Well, a frantic round of the championship to begin the Season 6 of the Apex Racing League Prototype Series. And, well, yeah, David, that was, yeah, pretty manic out there for a lot of the drivers. And Yeah, a very long hour race, I think, for a lot of them, particularly those guys who took the risk of not taking tyres and just going forever on fuel, putting the minimum amount of fuel in with 10 minutes to go against the end. Maybe that was the way to go.
Well, Daniel Craft proved me wrong. He made it work. He got the P2, well deserved. It did look like a tough race. It looked like staying alive, being calm in traffic, nailing your pit stop, having the right strategy was the call. It did not look like to me, say, QT's pace did win him the race, but everyone else was more staying out of trouble, keeping the tyres alive, not having spins, not getting caught up in incidents. Seemed to pay the biggest dividends in that race.
Well, let's have a look at the final results then for this round 1 of the championship. It was Kyuti Akamato up top ahead of Kraft, and just 11 seconds. I think Kraft, after qualifying in particular, will be pleased that the gap was so minimal. There was Dawson, Philip Kraft, Andrea Villela, and we didn't see a whole lot of Andrea actually out there, but on his debut, a really strong performance for him. There was James Ibram, who took the no tyre stop, and that seemed to really work wonders for him. He really catapulted his way up through the order. Max Voss, Aaron Smith, strong performance for him in 8th, Hugo Preto in 9th, and Paul Busby in 10th. He did take tyres, and yeah, that seems to be where he lost a bit of time. There's Blaž Turovsky, who's top of the amateur drivers. Fantastic result for him, ahead of Lorenzo Zoffoli. Nick Madsen, Joshua Wilson, Husu Alzugari, Mark Hutchinson, Miguel Bento, Ben Cullen, David Ray, Antonino Segro in 20th. Then it was Bia Chauvel, Ferreira, Valencia, Smerek, Simonson, Vilbrink, McFarquhar, and Loy. Sedgley and State rounding out the top 30. Apologies, of course, Sedgley top of the LMP3s and State second place out of the LMP3s. And then third place was Bob Humphrey, and him was Stevens, Saul, Clist, Copeland, Robinson, Smith, and the retirees were Favaro, Nucera, and Fortin. And I don't believe they will score points because they were more than 6 laps away from their class leader, and in fact also Willoughby, Jökulsson, and Devan joining them out of the 43 car field. We have got some interviews to come up, and I think first up we are going to have a chat with a man who we've come very accustomed to, because pretty much whenever he does a race he's on the podium and wants an interview. We've got QT Marto with us now. Here, congratulations. That was a very good start to your season. It seemed pretty easy from where we were sitting. How was it from your perspective?
Well, what an entrance first. Thank you. Well, it was a bit tricky with the prep we've done beforehand. I wasn't particularly sure about the tire wear, so I had to come up with something, and I came with this, well, rather off-sync pit stop strategy, I think. But it worked out beautifully for me. Unfortunately, a bit less for my teammate Andrew Dawson. But yeah, we will be looking into what we can do better next time.
Definitely, because we were both thinking that your strategy was probably going to be the way to go earlier on. Take the tyres and try to sort of even out the race so that you get the freshest tyres across the race. But then, of course, Daniel pitted, and that must have been quite a shock to see him only 5 seconds behind you with 10 minutes of the race to go.
No, not at all, actually. I knew that my tires were fresher, so either way, if he got in front of me, I would have probably, we're up to better him. So, well, it wasn't really big of a shock, really. So, yeah, it was pretty comfortable all the way through the race.
Yeah, excellent Q lap as well. I must say, if I remember rightly, you stood out from the crowd. So, yeah, congratulations on that and putting it together on. How did you find the open qualifying format?
I think it was something new, of course. I don't think we've ever had it in ARL, if I'm correct. But yeah, luckily Fuji is a large track, so it's easy to find space. And well, my quality lap could have been better because I was 1.5 tenths up going into turn 3. So yeah, it was quite disappointing to get an off track into turn 4.
Well, congratulations on a great start to the season, Q. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, of course. Always thank you guys for bringing this broadcast and organizing the leagues. And shout out to my teammate Andrew. He's been well, very strong throughout the whole race. So it's a shame that the strategy wasn't working out for him. And well, shout out to my team, Race Clutch, for well, having us on board.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having a chat with us, Keo, and see you back next week.
Yep, see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Ballon.
That was QT Marteau finishing top of all the drivers today, and no surprise, he was our favourite going into the championship, and he's very much consolidated that with tonight's result. I will give a quick shout out, however, to Virtual Racing School, who we were watching some trailers for just a few moments ago. And of course, yeah, if you want to try out their equipment, do check out VRS.racing or ApexRacingSim.com and get yourself some pedals, your wheelbase, or a wheel rim as well. I think we've got another interview, and I'll hand him over to you, David. I think we've got Balash Tarowski.
Hey guys.
Hello, Blas, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations on the LMDh win. How did it feel out there? I see you went for a strategy from here. Was it no tyres you went for?
Yeah, I took no tires because I felt I kept like a more constant pace, and from like the middle of the race I felt I was doing personal best on low fuel, so I was like, for 9 laps was it, something like that, I chose not to because I had the gap and I knew I wasn't going to get caught.
Excellent, excellent. You must be really pleased with your result. That's going to be some big points going in. Is this Fuji a track you've got much experience with? I know the rest of the schedule are some bigger track names, you know, more widely used.
Yeah.
How's your experience here at Fuji?
I did a GT3 race with Apex, but that's it. This is my second race here, so not much experience. And I thought, you know, after my quali, I was 8th, I think. I thought, you know, I'll just take what I can get and, you know, go around collect the spins. But yeah, I think my pace was better in the race. So yeah.
And your choice of LMDh. Now you've been out there and seen the others and their traits, how their tyres work. Is it a car you're happy you've chose, or are you eyeing up a different car now you've seen them all on track?
I chose it because I have the most experience with it, and I do endurances with my team, and I have, you know, I like the setups that I already used. So I chose it because of that, but it wasn't particularly strong, I think, on this track, Aussie and Spa, but I might switch later in the season, I'm not sure.
Copy. Yeah, and anyone you want to give a shout out to? Any teammates, your team, any?
I'll give a shout out to my parents. They're watching, I think. So shout out to them.
Brilliant. Yeah, and congratulations. That's some serious points in the bag, and yeah, good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
So that was Balash Tarowski, always a very consistent driver, and managing to score a comfortable MDH victory, and of course, crucially, those consistent lap times really helping him when it came to his strategy. We couldn't keep him away from the broadcast, could we? It's Aaron Smith who joins us now. Aaron, it is wonderful to see have you back and hear your voice once again. How was it out there? It seemed like a bit of a tough one, but your pace seemed rapid, particularly in qualifying.
Yeah, it was a bit of an up and down day, to be honest. The Cadillac definitely was not a fun car to drive this week. It was probably the worst car out of all of the options that we had. So ever so slightly regretting that choice, but still just got my head down and tried my best with it anyway. And yeah, qualifying wasn't amazing. I probably could have gone at least half a second faster, but yeah, just didn't have a very good qualifying. And yeah, the race was very chaotic. I don't know if you guys saw much of me on the stream, but yeah, it was not a boring race for me at all. I constantly had something to worry about, so that kept me awake during this hour at least.
We saw you make a very good move at the chicane, like 3 minutes into the race, maybe against like Voss, I want to say. So that was probably the best moment of the race, but I think we caught you a couple of other times. You took 4 tyres, it seemed like. Some guys took 0 tyres, some guys took 2. Am I right in thinking that you took 4 tyres, and do you think that was the right way to go?
I think in the end it wasn't probably the best way to go. I know Marteau went with 4 tyres, but I mean, he just had the pace to win. So I think whatever strategy he would have gone on, he probably would have won. But yeah, I think maybe 2 tyres probably was the best way to go. I've seen a few people who took no tyres also, it worked pretty well. I kind of think it just depended on your driving style mostly, and because I didn't have an amazing start, I had to go quite aggressive and push the tyres, push the fuel. So kind of bogged me down in the pits a little bit, but in the end I think P8's decent, but I'll be looking for better results in the next few rounds.
Definitely. Well, we trust that you can deliver on that. Aaron, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before you say goodbye?
I don't know if anyone is watching really that I've told to watch, but yeah, just you guys, Sam and David, of course, doing his first, I believe his first broadcast at the studio today.
Yeah.
So yeah, hope you're enjoying it. It's an absolutely amazing experience, David. But
It is.
yeah, you guys have done an amazing job with the broadcast and the leagues. So yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Aaron, for coming up and having a chat with us, and we look forward to seeing you for the rest of the season.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron Smith there, finishing in the end in 8th position, which I think it may have been his first race actually in the pits. Maybe should have asked him. But I think that was a very good result for him nonetheless. And that pretty much rounds out our interviews for today. So, I mean, I think after this first round, I think it's even more exciting for what's going to come up later on, because particularly in the LMDh category, ever so just packed. There's just so many of them battling one another. And then for the LMP3s, obviously a much smaller grid, but you know, having those top 3 run nose to tail for the first half hour, promising signs that that's going to be a competitive championship as well.
Yeah, and so we can definitely hear from all the different strategy calls out there. There is some experience to be built. A lot of people are using this league to perhaps build their knowledge in the car, because we saw such a deviation in strategies that I think that's going to become more and more ironed out. And some of the rest of the tracks we've got do lend themselves easier to multi-class traffic. I mean, Fuji's brilliant, but that last sector, it can be brutal when you're struggling with your own car, you're struggling with traction, and you've got a different class alongside you. It can be very tricky. So yeah, I'm very excited to the season coming up.
Definitely. Well, that's pretty much everything from us in that case. Of course, if you have got an appetite to want to join the grid, sign-ups are still open. Go to apexracingleague.com, sign up to the championship, and you can also sign up to any of our other series as well, of course. Of course, big thanks to Apex Racing Academy, to Virtual Racing School, and to Apex Racing Simulators, and to SDK Gaming as well for sponsoring this broadcast. Of course, if you go to the description, you can click on their links and check out more from their products. Yeah, that is pretty much it for us. Of course, do check out our social media platforms as well: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and TikTok as well. And of course, give the YouTube channel a subscribe and this video a like as well. But for now, from myself, Sam Fitzpatrick, and from David Sampson, we are going to say goodbye, and we'll see you back at round 2 from Spa. See you then.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.